Hi guys, and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. We help Muslims and non-Muslims alike to understand and handle Islam in the 21st century. We consider ourselves to be decent human beings, so we condemn categorically any abuse, oppression, misogyny, slavery, violence, anything like that. We do embrace, however, free spoke criticism, even if it is directed at us, if it is factual and constructive criticism. We focus on Islam exclusively. So if you're curious about anything Islam, you've come to the right place. Now, we don't attack, which is aggressive, destructive, and antagonistic, neither Islam nor Muslims. We ask questions and show facts. We refute false claims and present the reality of Islam, which is political Islam. We inspect, investigate, research, analyze, and then report and critique on Islam, the ideology, not the people. Now, the live stream goes to YouTube and Facebook, and there are three ways that you can participate in this. Either you join us in the live written chat, you can join the panel during the live show, or later on watch and comment the archive. And anyone can join to comment, critique, contribute, or question. This is not a Dawa channel with censorship. Don't go to Patreon, don't go to PayPal. Everything here is free. The way we work is usually we have some news, some Krazy Komments, a segment where we go and read the Quran, and then a discussion on the theme of the month, followed by integrating the live chat, ending with a Hadith of the week. If this is not enough Islam for you, there's still the Discord channel where you can discuss with us without anything being recorded. See you later and enjoy the Gin and Tonic Show. Hello and welcome to a Friday evening with the Gin and Tonic Show, where we talk about Islam. It is the 30th of April, and it is the last Friday in April, and the last time we're going to focus on Muhammad for the week. Welcome to the panel. Welcome to In the Nick of Time podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on this week.
Hello, Mustafa.
Hello, everyone, and again, Ramadan Mubarak, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to get any response to that, are you?
All right.
And of course, Rob Speakers, how are you doing?
Good evening, everybody. Fellow panelists, viewers, and people who are watching afterwards. Good evening, and hope everybody's well.
And welcome to the people in the chat. It's good to have you with us, and I hope we're going to bring you not only entertainment, but also information, where we try and be as objective as is possible. Now, one thing that we're doing at the moment, let me quickly show you what it is that we are addressing this month.
Who is this man called Muhammad? Peace and blessings upon him, in the desert 1400 years ago, making a claim that an angel came to a cave and told him he's a messenger to mankind. Test that claim. Is he lying about this claim? Is he crazy delusional about this claim? Has he been deceived into this claim? Or is he telling the truth? Test the claim.
That is exactly what we are doing. What we have done this whole month, I think, we've looked at all the different possibilities. We looked at the texts, we looked at Islamic texts, we looked at Islamic scholars, we looked at Hadith, we looked at the Sunnah in general, we looked at outside texts and sources. And what we have established is that most likely Muhammad was somebody who was created as a person to go and be the figurehead, as it were, for Islam, sometime in the 7th or 8th century. And that is what we have found so far. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look what is the situation and what is the impact of Muhammad today. But before we do that, we're going to do, I mean, of course, we're not going to abandon our usual structure, let's call it that, where we go and we look at things around Islam. For example, what we find is when we look at inspiration in different parts of the internet. So this is somebody who says that Allah understands our prayers even when we can't find the words to say them. Well, this is a bit of a strange claim, given that you need to be using the Arabic language as much as possible. You need to point at a certain star in the universe which somehow correlates with the direction of Mecca. You need to follow the rituals precisely, how many times you need to bend, how many times to get on your knees, how many times you need to bend forward, where to put your palms, where to put the nose, where to put the forehead, in what position to keep your feet. So given all these very strict instructions, this Allah understands, even if we don't know the right words, seems a bit overboard, seems a bit strange. Any other comments on this?
No, I think Allah understands our prayer. But then what's the point of the prayer if He understands the prayer itself?
If you don't really need to make a prayer, then what is it? Oh, exactly. And I didn't
Yeah,
even
if he knows
think
what you're going to
about
say in your head or whatever the case is, even before you said it, why would you do it?
Exactly.
Well, you're doing it
That
because
was-
you've got no other choice, right?
Does he
But
have
even
a
if you
naughty
had
and
some
nice
sort of
list as well? No, I was going to ask, like, does he have a naughty or nice list as well?
Well, again, God is supposed to have a naughty and nice list, right? But in this case, the naughty list actually goes to burn forever, and the nice list goes to screw giant women, the giant virgin women, may I ask, forever while drinking honey and wine.
This seems like an adult Santa Claus.
He's very adult, very adult.
And this is the thing. This is, I think, how you can easily flatten Islam within seconds. Because if you ask a Muslim, is Allah in need of anything? The answer is going to be no. Allah does not need anything. And then you ask the Muslim, then why is it that Allah creates humans, He doesn't need, to do something, only something that He doesn't need, which is to worship? So create something He doesn't need to do something He doesn't need, and yet it is being done. So what is the point of Islam? So this whole concept has a huge flaw. But there we go. Okay, what we're going to look at is a couple of, or the other thing I found in the news, for example, I found a very, very nice idea, because it says the first thing created by Allah was the pen, and then He ordered it to write. So it wrote everything that will happen till the day of judgment. Now, this is the standard Islamic narrative. So my question is, when Allah created the pen to write everything, well, why didn't it write the Quran for us? Why did that have to be revealed over 22 or 23 or whatever years to a illiterate camel herder in the desert somewhere in Arabia? Why not give every person, every individual, the book in their own language, or even better, like what happens with messengers? Just give the message, the contents of the book, to every person, which obviously must be possible because the messengers get it. So those are two things where immediately Islam is completely illogical and obsolete. And by the way, I saw a new and updated poll. No, not poll, not a prediction. It was, what do you call this? If you estimate the number of people, but they didn't call it an estimation. I can't remember what they called it. Anyway, so this was data. Well, you can't really do that because anybody can say anything, and it depends very much on how you ask the question. Anyway, what they're saying is that they have a new estimate on how many Muslims there are, and this is the first time I see this, that this is an official, and I can't remember if this was Belgium or Germany, an official estimate, and the number was 1.2 billion Muslims. So this is a huge reduction from the 1.5 or 1.6, 1.8 that we've seen like 10 years ago. And if you now take the explosion of the population, of Earth's population in general, the percentage of Muslims is coming down all the time. So Islam is collapsing, and it doesn't matter how many times.
Can you show us the reference for that?
No. I can't remember where I read this. This was just something that I took up on passing when I went through the news.
All right, then keep your secrets to yourself.
Yeah, actually, I should. Actually, now that you mention it, I should, because I can't back it up. It's just something that I read while going through something, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I mean, it's not a major thing. It's just something that I read, so I thought, I didn't need to keep it. But it would have, you're right. It would have been interesting to see what this was actually based on. Maybe we'll see more of this, and then maybe next week I'll find I can substantiate this a bit. But okay, you are right, and I'm very happy that you guys are doing this, that we are holding each other honest and accountable. Okay, and this is something that I appreciate, even though I'm the one with the short end of the stick at the moment. But it's good that we're doing this, I think, anyway. It's good that we're asking, okay, if you make a claim like that, what is it based on? And I think that's excellent. And I wish more people would do that, especially Muslim apologists, where I'm always saying, please, I've only got one demand. I've only got one hope for you, and that is stop lying. And that's... Another funny item I found in the news is Ramadan in lockdown was one of the best ones I've experienced. So for Maria Idrissi, who is a poet or some artist, there was no chance of a normal Ramadan in lockdown. But it's given her an important opportunity to reconnect with what's important. And that for her was the reconnection with Allah. So it seems that people find something positive in this lockdown, in that they can't go out, they can't have fun, they can't do things. So what they do is, I don't know I don't know anybody who opens a Quran if they're bored. I really don't know anybody. But maybe this is what people do. Okay, what comes after the news?
Another news item. I have to share this. The Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, he called upon the governments of the European Union to, and I quote, criminalize blasphemy against Islam. And he wants to call on Western governments to treat insult against Islam's prophet as it does the Holocaust.
Bro, this guy can't... There's an actual Holocaust-style concentration camp situation going on with Muslims in China. This guy doesn't give a rat's ass about that. Yet he's going to talk about some guy drawing a cartoon in the other side of the world.
Yeah, so that was the news. And apparently he's disappointed that the European Union Parliament calls for the review of Pakistani GSP plus status, or General Scheme of Preferences plus status. So in the wake of an alarming increase in use of blasphemy accusations.
Sorry, what is that status?
It's a General Scheme of Preferences plus status.
Okay, what does it do? I've never heard of this.
It's calling for a review of Pakistan's eligibility for a General Scheme of Preferences status in the wake of an alarming increase in the use of blasphemy accusations in the country, as well as the rising number of online and offline attacks on journalists and civil society organizations. This is the first time I'm hearing this too, but I'm guessing must be something to do with like immigration or something like that.
But it doesn't tell you the consequences.
No, but they're just reviewing it. Like they're calling for a review, especially in Brussels. This just happened. So they're just going to do a review.
Okay.
So this was horrible.
Yeah, this I don't know why they're going so crazy. I don't know why Pakistan thinks it can go back 1,000 years. I don't.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, the guy needs to actually, like, his own damn neighbors trying to kill his people, yet he's more concerned about Europe not banning free speech.
Yeah, but it's a psychological thing, right? The brains are highly of some of these people are highly brainwashed, essentially, with this idea of low cognitive, involvement, that you should have blasphemy against an ideology that's 1,400 years old that they can't demonstrate is true. But even if it were true, we'd still, I think, well, for me personally, think that North Korea had come to the entire world and hope for annihilation if there was such a thing. I wouldn't be comfortable in heaven and certainly wouldn't be comfortable in hell. So, but be that as it may, whether it's true or not true, it's simply an idea. And obviously with the Holocaust, you had 6 million people who were gassed and burned and so forth. And the comparison is just so utterly asinine that somebody like that, again, how could they be, who was that? Was that Erdogan? How can they be the leader of the country?
Yeah.
I mean, the brain just stops functioning, right? I wish we had aliens that had an advanced civilization that could show us what happened to human brains when they start to think like that. It'd probably be like, you open up like I've got one of those outside sewer places. You open it up, and it's the equivalent of that. Everything's just going crazy in the brain, right? And some silly words are coming out of the mouth as a response. It's very sad human cognitive dissidence that goes on here. If the ideology was so strong, they'd invite criticism of all sorts, blasphemy, and you name it. It just shows how weak this is, that they've got to try and protect an idea from somebody who may or may not have lived 1400 years ago. It's just so asinine.
Yeah. And
That's
even Imran Khan, he thinks like he can bully the entire world and please radical Islamists at the same time. He can't do both at the same time. And he's also failed at the fact that he doesn't even want to recognize the discrimination of Ahmadi Muslims in his own country, where it's legal discrimination. Ahmadi Muslims cannot preach their own religion in their own country.
Well, which is basically
They're not really
Islam.
Muslims, are they?
It's Islam, and it's a different version of Islam, just recognizes a different Messiah. So
Different prophet, yeah, that's it.
From prophet. So, and that's
The
blasphemous.
real version.
Yeah.
It's so silly, really. It's so silly. Oh boy. Anyway, and this is actually quite funny, because this ties in with the comments I'm going to read now, because it is true. People are saying that Adam, the number one human being, was created in heaven. In other words, outside of Earth. In other words, he was an alien. So some people are saying what Professor Dawkins said, that there is a possibility, and there is a theoretical possibility, that life was spawned outside and came to Earth as an experiment or as a accident or whatever the case may be, but it could have come from an outside place in the form of a meteorite or something. That this is actually like in line with what he was saying, that now Muslims are saying, well, Adam was an alien because he was created outside of Earth and then was sent to Earth. And this is why it was possible that in heaven he was 30 meters tall or 27 meters. So this is quite
Was
funny.
that the argument from hijab?
No, but this is what somebody said in the comments, that this is quite rational, of course, because hijab was trying to use the standard. I mean, hijab is he just copy paste. He goes to the orthodoxy and then just presents what they say. That's what he came up with.
I haven't seen the video, so I'm not sure what they say.
I mean, hijab doesn't really know what he's doing there. It's just that somebody else came with different concepts and different ideas. And I thought it's quite funny that now Muslims are harping on that Adam was an alien. So quite funny. Okay, so let us continue with the comments. Let me go and do this and then this. Now, remember, these are all taken from this video from Sapiens. Now, Sapiens is making a name for itself, okay? Because now Muslims, I don't know why, are flocking to this. They are fascinated with what is happening there. I was on a stream. I know this was Asidawa, I think, with sources and with some others. When sources challenged me to something, and I just put a video out showing what nonsense he's coming up with, and he doesn't learn anything. All these things are ancient old. There's nothing new that Muslim apologists come up with. So this guy is saying, meeting our father Adam, AS, which is peace be upon him, or in the afterlife, is something I look forward to. May Allah reward you guys at Sapiens for clearing doubts and misconceptions. So people are now going to Sapiens to get information, which of course it is not. It's a propaganda channel. And this is actually, it's clearing doubts. This is all that they want to do. So they're going there with the preconceived idea that Sapiens is going to help them.
Well, just a quick note, AS is alayhi salam. That's what they mean. Our father Adam alayhi salam.
So it means peace be upon him, right?
Yes, alayhi salam, yes.
Which is different than what Muhammad gets.
Yeah, it's sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
So there's even blessings and peace.
Blessings and peace be upon him. Whereas this is just peace be upon him, like alayhi salam.
So this is the hierarchy. He's one below Muhammad. It's so funny, this hierarchy, because I see this also when they're talking about other people, like Aisha, for example. She gets a different title again.
It's Razia Ta'ala Anhu.
I think this is so silly. There's a hierarchy, and depending on your hierarchy, you get different levels of peace and blessing.
Yeah. Razia Ta'ala Anhu is a bit like lower compared to alayhi salam.
So the higher you are in the hierarchy, the more of peace you need.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, this is so funny, I think. Okay, but this is so telling that they are now going to Sapiens, and they're going there just to clear the doubts. So they are taking whatever they hear from Sapiens as coming from authority. And this is exactly what I see. So I don't know why you guys don't go make videos about Sapiens, because I'm going to be tied up now in a different area for a while. Let's take on the channels and what's his name? The Greek guy again, Socrates' son. What he's doing, he's doing a marvelous job of taking on all the videos by Sapiens and making fun of them. So this is quite good, but there's not enough. We should have more people doing that. Maybe Pine Creek has now lapped up some of the nectar here, the Islam nectar, and he's more enticed to go into Islam a bit more. That he's sick and tired of the Christians and sees a new challenge in Islam that would be welcome. Anyway, let's go to the next one. This guy says, daily reminder, try to supplicate these du'as every single day habitually. That's all it is. This is what Islam has become. It's just like a collection of just rituals. And now the funny thing is, he brings up a couple, and he says the first one is that guarantees you forgiveness. What is the point of having an ideology which says that you are a sinner, that says that you are going to commit, I don't know, crimes or something, but then at the same time it says all you have to do is la ilaha illallah and you're forgiven? Is that really the appeal that Islam has, that no matter what you do, no matter what kind of a crime you commit, all you need to do is just mumble a couple of words and all is forgiven? Is that the appeal to some people? Is that why so many criminals go for Islam? Because they know that nothing can really touch them. As soon as they just say a couple of words, they're good to go.
Yeah, it's la ilaha illa Allahu wahdahu la sharika lahu mulku wa lahu hamdu. There's some missing stuff here.
Yeah, I didn't want to put the whole thing because this is multi-page.
Oh, it was long.
Because he had a couple. These du'as, so he has a couple of du'as, there are a couple of prayers. One that guarantees you forgiveness, one that guarantees you immediate access to heaven and things like that. So, but I didn't want to bring all of them. For me, this is telling. This is the crazy message that people actually believe that no matter what they do, they will be forgiven by just mumbling a couple of words. You know, this is like the magic spells that you have in Harry Potter. Mumble a couple of words and something happens. This is the same thing. I don't get it. So eating a couple of dates and you cannot be harmed by poison and things like that. So that's quite weird. The next one is, it actually makes sense that the first human being would have been this big and lived for approximately 1,000 years. If you're the only human on Earth, you need huge strength and long life to make an impact on your surroundings.
Okay. He was not the only human, even according to the mythology. There was Eve as well. So there were two.
Yeah, but we don't know the size of Eve. Maybe she was just 168. We don't know this.
My goodness. Adam was 90 feet and she was 168. Meters only?
I don't know.
If that's the case, she was definitely getting split in half every night.
Okay, Nick.
Yeah. Well, what else am I supposed to think?
No. Okay, it's so ridiculous. Like, there's a hadith that's... Wait, is there a hadith or which Muslim source says that Adam was 90 feet tall?
Oh, there's a lot.
Oh.
I think the thing is, right, I mean, this again, somebody's thinking like this, the brain just isn't really thinking. He would have had to be in this big and lived if you're the only human. If you were the only human and God had provided for you in, say, a Garden of Eden, you could be 1 foot tall and you could be immune to any harm by any other thing if that's what God wanted. No, you don't have to be. And if you're talking about Adam being a miracle, we'll obviously demonstrate that. If he is supposed to have lived by our physics, then that size human wouldn't have been able to carry the bone structure unless it was superhuman, in which case he wouldn't have been human. There's a difference between human and superhuman. And so by all metrics that we can understand in the physics of today, such a large person, given the bone structure and so forth, wouldn't actually be able to move around. But he wouldn't need to be that. He could live 1,000 years or whatever the case is, but he has supposedly the protection of God. So he could be the size of an ant and nothing could touch him. So again, it's just fascinating, the psychology of humans here. They so need these things to be true because they've been brainwashed that it's true, that they have to try and make rational sense of it. And these comments are perfect examples of what's going on between the ears of some human beings. And it's a fascinating psychological insight into brains that aren't thinking critically.
And again, look at the way that they argue. It is not the intellectual strength, it's not the intellectual size, it is the human, the physical stature, the size, the impact that you're having from a strength point of view. It's always the physical thing. This is always what they're looking at. The huge strength to make an impact. You need to be big and strong. And this is the way that they think. And I'm just seeing in the comments, was there even a Muhammad? We've established that there is no evidence to support that claim. So that's it. Anyway, and what I did is I always left the comments. So there's 45 people in there that actually agree with this guy. And this is exactly what Rob says. This is showing the way that people think. They don't say, well, is this really possible? Let me test this. What would the bone density have to be to support such a structure? If they're not hollow bones, if they're not this, if the weight is this, how is it going to be supported? Is that possible? No. They're trying everything to justify it by any means. Same here. Subhanallah, I just had this exact question and someone sent me this, which was uploaded just 30 minutes ago. Isn't this wonderful? I was thinking of this girl that I went out with yesterday, and there she is on the phone. Isn't this magic?
Except all the times when you thought of things and they never happen, which far outweighs the few times that it does. And when you recognize we're pattern seeking and we want to find, we don't like coincidences, we want it explained, then something like this it happens not just to Muslims, but people in general. Oh, wow, I was thinking of that and it just happened. It happened to me the other day. I was thinking of somebody, and about 3 hours later, the person phoned. I said, I was thinking about you earlier today. All the while realizing that I thought about different people like zillions of times and nobody's ever interacted in any way. And on the one time I do, suddenly all of that bias is forgotten. And I go, wow, this must be serendipity, except all the times when it isn't, which is 100 to 1 or 1,000,000 to 1.
But people still fall for it. It's amazing.
Well, that's because they're pattern seeking. So you've got to, remember how we are evolutionary evolved. And if we were created, we're very poor creations in any case. And they don't have the attempted excuse that the Christians do, that we're all fallen and therefore imperfect. Not to say that Adam and Eve were perfect to begin with, but we're all imperfect, right? They don't have that. So they have to try and make sense of how we could be so imperfect and yet perfect at the same time by their lights, exactly, of course.
Remember the hits, forget the misses. Exactly. But the thing is, why do we four people here, normal people, we're not intellectual giants, we're not all Einsteins and things like that. We're just normal people, and yet we recognize this. How come we can do this? And how come so many Muslims, and come on, it's Christians as well for that matter, why is it limited? Why is their thinking limited? Why do they fall for this? It's quite strange in my eyes.
I don't think they realize it. Yeah, I think most of them are lay people. We're all lay people, but we've had some years of experience listening to these people, looking at these and sort of mulling it over. At least I have, and a little bit of psychology, to boot. And so you can kind of see what's going on here.
And this is an expert on atheists. I don't know why this is a problem. They believe that we began out of nothingness and randomly, and that we evolved from apes. They have nothing to stand up on.
Whenever you hear that, right, you immediately kind of know the level of your interlocutor. Yeah. Or the lack of level of your interlocutor there. no
Yeah, but
sophisticated
36
person would
likes.
say that.
36 likes.
They keep
Yeah,
harping
but
on this. It's like it's just it started randomly. It started out of nothingness. It's like
it's like I'm always charitable with people, and I take them to be adults of sort of their brains have developed to whatever degree. But when you hear something like this, then you immediately have to recalibrate and go, okay, I'm speaking to somebody that is either utterly clueless or their thinking capacity hasn't even evolved past a teenage years or whatever the case is. Because you will find sophisticated theists will never say something like this. They know better. But the unsophisticated, of which are the 99% vast majority, will say things like this. And when you explain it to them and you kind of help them with this, it's like in one ear and out the other, and they'll go and say the same thing to somebody else. At that point, you're like, why? What? The only reason to interact is to hope that other people who are listening will take note. Because if it goes in and out of those ears, or it doesn't even penetrate, the cranium, then what's the point?
What is interesting in my eyes here is this we and they. They love this divisiveness of Islam. I don't know why we can't say, okay, we agree on most things. We agree that we don't eat human flesh. We agree that it is more beneficial to pick up the wallet that somebody has dropped because it could be me the next time. There are a lot of commonalities between every human being. And it doesn't matter where this human being lives, what kind of a human being this is, how tall, how strong, how whatever. There are some differences when it comes to the intellectual belief. And that is it. So, this is just one, in my eyes, a small difference which might just have a huge impact. But why are we allowing this to have such a huge impact? And this is what baffles me, where I say, this is such a, 99.999% we're identical, and there's such a small difference. How can this tiny difference have such a huge impact on our intellect, on our everything, everyday actions?
Very easily stops. It's a team sport. They think they're on the winning team, and even though we look and sound and act very similar, the most important thing by their team's rules, we're disqualified from. So everything else is just ignored. I mean, it's not difficult to understand the poor psychology.
Yeah, but the thing is, why don't they understand it? This is what always baffles me. Why can't, okay, I'm generalizing, the Muslim as such, like the majority of Muslims, why can't they understand that an atheist is not a group? It's highly individual. It is only a tiny facet. And there is no commonality between us four. So maybe one likes bicycles, the other one likes roller skates, and so on and so forth. So we don't have many things in common, or we don't have to have this. Maybe we agree on some things, but it's not a precondition, and it's not something that we strive for. But in Islam, this is exactly the case. You are part of a group, and you cannot go and criticize somebody heavily. You can criticize, and we will see this a bit later on, how people do that. But you can't criticize somebody outright and say, listen, you cannot do that because it is wrong. You will not find that. Because they are part of the in-crowd, part of the group. And why don't they understand that with an atheist, you don't have that? And this is weird for me, that they always need to compare atheists to theists and find commonalities that, atheism is a religion, and we have prophets, and we have gods, and we have scripture. I think that's crazy. I always think, why is that? Does it really make it easier for them to compartmentalize people? And I don't know how else that works.
Oh, and then there's there's the tendency to compare atheists to communists. Like,
that's the other. Yeah.
That's the only thing they can come up with, and I'm like, this is very old Christian apologetics, and now I've noticed that Muslims are adopting age-old Christian apologetics and just inserting them into Islam, or just using that just to attack atheists, because why not?
It's weird, eh?
Yeah, but I think there is, I agree with Stops that many things are different with atheists in general, but there are certain things that are the same, and that's what, at least sophisticated theists are challenging, and that's the lack of belief or disbelief in a God, right? Whether we like horses or ponies or, vegetarian or vegan or whatever else. the most important thing by their lights we do have in common with each other. And that's what the sophisticated people will point out. The unsophisticated will just not realize this probably and just lump everybody not realizing it, because they all believe similar things. But the sophisticated ones will just hone in on the high level similarities across all atheism, all atheists really, which is the disbelief or lack of belief in a God.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends on which one you're speaking to, and then maybe asking them the question. I don't get frustrated with it. I mean, I think Stops does regularly, because I'm charitable that hopefully the person I'm speaking to is referring only to that. And if I listen to it and I hear them trying to generalize other things, I'll stop them in their tracks. Or I can just ask them, what you mean by all atheists is this one claim, because everything else, or many other things, would be very different, and it's not the same as you theists. So, but I know Stops, that's one of his pet peeves, I guess.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, I'm what am I anal about this? Yeah. The funny thing is that I don't see any justification for this. I don't see any way that we can go and differentiate too much on this if we just take the one small little sliver that we have, and this is the belief regarding God. So this is quite weird. Now I forgot where I was going to go with this. I was going to go, but then I found now that that an atheist can put themselves into the shoes of a theist and can pretend to be or pretend to think or can make it look as though he actually is a theist and play devil's advocate quite nicely, which is not possible the other way around. Now, this guy Joseph, for example, I read this and now I have some doubts, because I think, is this guy now really this clueless, or is this somebody who's just a troll who's taking the mickey out of this? Because I found now a couple of people with Arabic names on Facebook, for example, who are atheists, but who are then making provocative statements where it is incredibly difficult to differentiate. Is this now a troll? Is this now just somebody, providing satire or something? Or is this truly somebody who is making such a stupid claim? Because this is the funny thing. The satire of an atheist sounds a lot like the real claims that a Muslim apologist will make. So this is quite funny that I found this in the past, and I'm getting a little bit more careful now in climbing down on somebody before having established that this is really somebody's case and that he's not putting the mickey out. Yeah, so yeah, we don't know. And of course, remember, this is a video on a 27-meter tall Adam. And this guy says very good points. I never had the opportunity to explore this subject, even though I always believed that Adam was that tall because it came in authentic sunnah. And that is all it takes. That is all it takes. He doesn't look at this. It came in an authentic sunnah. It came in a text that somebody else has declared, yes, this is authentic. And they will believe it. They will not question it. They will not go investigate. They will not go and check anything. They will just say, Amen. Yes, I believe it. That's sad. And here we have, and he pops up everywhere. I'm sure Allah will protect Adam's bones from being dug up. It's not realistic.
Come on. Oh, come on. That would actually give us evidence. That's actually going to make your religion look good. What the hell?
It's not realistic to expect to find his bones no matter who large they once were.
I can't even spell how properly.
It's all a conspiracy. I'm sure Allah will protect the bones from being dug up so we can never find them.
My God. Now I'm calling upon God. Was this?
I'm sorry, but I think this is so silly. It's amazing.
This makes me laugh because wouldn't it make their wouldn't it prove their points?
Well,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's double stupid. It is. But this guy is really amazing. Okay. Ah, okay. And now this Abu Khalifa, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Abu Khalifa is somebody who is not a Muslim. But Abu Khalifa is definitely a name where you would immediately assume that this is a Muslim. But he's asking about this video on Adam, did you also think that The Lord of the Rings was a documentary? And then he was asking this to Fire Gaming, and Fire Gaming replied, this is a Muslim space. If you disagree, just move on. This is the attitude.
Yeah, shut down any form of any new idea or any analogy, any form of criticism, just shut down.
But it also shows you that this guy, Fire Gaming, thinks that if this is a Muslim space, they can believe any nonsense they want without it being challenged, because you're not allowed to challenge another Muslim. So if they are talking nonsense, it's perfectly okay, because nobody is going to tell them, listen, brother, what are you saying? Stop it. Nobody will do so. This is a Muslim space. If you disagree, just move on. Now, this guy makes a claim. We have giant roaches, giant crocs, giant mosquitoes, giant elephants, even giant lizards in the ancient times. And why don't we, as a human being, have one too? He doesn't. People don't. Now, this is an interesting one, because this is an authentic hadith from Sahih Muslim, and it says by Abu Huraira, 90% of all hadiths come through Abu Huraira. Allah, the Exalted and Glorious, created Adam in his image, the same way as the Bible teaches it. So they're just copying him. With his length of 60 cubits, and as he created him, he told him to greet the group and blah, blah, blah. So that means we get two pieces of information here. That Adam, in other words, the human being, is in the image of the God. So God looks like a human being and is 27 meters tall. So we now have, I don't know, is this real? Is this data? Is this confirmed data that the height of a God is exactly 27 meters? I don't know. Any ideas?
Wait, so it
I don't
says
know how they got there.
60 cubits, it's the height of God, or is it the height of Adam?
Well, it says his length of 60 cubits. He created Adam in his image with his length of 60 cubits. So
Okay,
his image and his length.
Wait, so 60 cubits, hold on. 60 cubits, yeah, that's 90 feet approximately.
Yeah, it's 27 meters roundabout, yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is just, it's like it told him, and he created him, and with his length, so God is only 90 feet tall?
There you go.
Wow, we have a precise God then.
Yes.
We could create an idol that is 90 feet tall, and there we go, boom, there's God. Right there.
Now we know what God looks like, how tall he is. Now we know everything you've always wanted to know about God. There you go.
Yeah. He's a human and he's just 90 feet tall. That's it. Yeah.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
You saw it in a hadith, which is graded Sahih. That's so much. Now, if you give this to a Muslim, do you think that he's going to say, oh, it's in a Sahih Muslim? Yeah, well then, yeah, I agree. Yeah. Do you think that this is going to happen? No. They're going to jump through all sorts of hoops and try and go and find anything to say, oh, hang on, here we have only one to serve. What does he say? Liberal atheists destroy Western man. Okay, this is nonsense. Liberal dandy. Okay, this is there's nothing in his creation. Exactly. Okay, so there's nothing useful. So I thought maybe for once you would say something useful, but
at least it's Dr. Manhattan is somewhat useful, like from the Watchmen's comics. So Dr. Manhattan, well, he does shapeshift in different sizes, but that's the closest thing we have to a god if we take this hadith seriously.
Yeah, but is this empirical evidence now?
Yeah, like it's again for a Muslim, it's like this is a Sahih Hadith, and they can kind of wiggle their way out of this by saying he's not saying his length. He's not saying his length is his own length. Like they can kind of like play around with the words, like argue semantics, right?
Yeah, but how? It's his image.
Yeah, so he's his image and his length,
Yes.
60 cubits. Interesting how they can wiggle their way out of this.
Anyway, I thought this was very interesting, that we have not only, because I was actually looking for the size of whatchamacallit, of Adam. For me, the claim that he created Adam in his image, I remember like vaguely reading this in some hadith, but now that I look for it, you will find something like, I don't know, 4 or 5 dozen of these things, which all say the same thing, in his image. This one I chose because it very specifically says he created Adam in his image with his length, because this the others don't say. So I found this interesting. So I just thought I would present this to you and report about this, and that's all. So I'm not saying this is true or false. I'm just saying this is in the text. If a Muslim wants to accept the Sunnah as, like, I will never forget Adnan Rashid, who's saying this is like scripture. We are taking the 2 books of Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari as scripture. Well, congratulations. They define the size of Allah. Well done. Mr. Thinker says, did you just laugh when saying that Adam was an extraterrestrial? Oh, this is nice. This is nice, because if he was created in heaven and then sent to earth, he was an extraterrestrial. That is correct. Now, I don't know if this is a Muslim or non-Muslim, but this is quite funny. Yeah. Now, SDSGSFGDSHFHDH says, my beloved brothers and sisters, instead of risking deen-related matters by relying on logic, which is different for everyone, we should be, as believers are, and submit to what Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala said and what the Messenger said. Now, what do we learn? Well, we can't rely on logic because it's different for everyone. So if I say
logic, logic, facts, art, proper evidence, all these should be thrown out the window.
Yeah, exactly. So,
why the hell not? Let's throw out, let's toss out due process and due diligence as well.
And just believe. We should blindly believe as believers, and that is it. That's all that you're doing. Now, this is quite interesting. Now, you actually have to, because this is an exchange, so read 1 first and then 2 next. And believe me, it took me like half an hour to put the 2 in there in handwriting with the mouse. So, Assalamu alaikum. This is not a point of Aqidah. Otherwise, I would not have brought up these questions. I'm not saying the hadith is faulty, but it being labeled Sahih is the only legitimate argument this idea has at the moment, because the defense from Brother Hijab was not convincing at all. Boom. I believe in miracles, but this does not qualify as a miracle. I would also would not like for us to become like Christians and Jews, where we have beliefs that contradict logic and physical reality, like the earth being only 6,000 years old, or plants having been created after humans. 27-meter humans is awfully close to those. Thank you for reply. Barakallahu fik. So this is somebody who's reasonable. This is somebody who's thinking, and he says, look, we don't want to take this up that we are going against reality. And he doesn't say it is wrong. He just says that having a human that is 27 meters high is close to those things. Now, I like that. I like that very much, this indirect way of saying, it's not really like that, and we need to be careful what we are saying here, so don't immediately go and just believe this. So he is being critical. He is being rational and saying, careful here. And of course the reply is, I understand your point, but I disagree with much of what you said. you're bringing all these questions about how such a tall person should have lived or could have lived, when the bottom line is, and this is important, when the bottom line is the ahadith very clearly state that Adam was that tall. That's the end of the matter. Whether non-Muslims or doubtful Muslims accept this is another matter. And that's it. That's why Islam is dying. That's the end of the matter. It's there, it's in the scripture, it's in the text. Forget it, accept it.
So yeah, so basically just what it says and then accept it. So this should turn away a lot of Muslims away from Islam. And the fact that he just says that is an entirely different matter, where there's doubt. So there's no room to question either.
And then finally, the last one. Okay, shit, I can't stay serious. We did not come from chimps. Your understanding of evolution is extremely poor. And Mycrop replies, actually, yours is worse. Humans are a creation created by God. Very simple, but true. And there you have it.
Oh.
No discussion, no argument, no nothing. There you have it. End of story. Oh, goodness, okay.
Just silly. I'm rubbing my brain right now because I'm just aside from that torture that I.
It's puzzling. Puzzling. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before.
Well, and we come to our Koran Korner, where we look at a Quran, and what we do is we take a condensed version of the different sentences, and what we do is we just go and look at the Quran the way it is written, and then make it a little bit shorter and smaller, and at the same time look at the way it is written to try and understand it. So here we go. This is what I have done for today. We don't need to go through all of it. We can stop wherever, because I did this until sentence 60. It's just over 100, this chapter 10. So whenever you feel like it, we could just stop. So this is chapter 10 of the Quran, and we've come to the sentence in 38, to de-invent it, bring a chapter like it. We discussed this last week. Then deny what they can't comprehend. Some believe, some don't. So it's all about belief here and the consequences. And sentence number 41, those who deny have their deeds, I have mine. Now, just again, if you don't know what I'm doing, this is not what it says in the Quran, okay? The Quran might have one line or two lines or three lines. I'm just taking the essence of what I think it says, and I'm bringing this here. Those who deny have their deeds. So in other words, this is something that it mentions in the Quran, and I have mine. This is then, I don't know, the juxtaposition or whatever you want to call this, that is being expressed in the Quran sentence. And then number 42, sentence 42 says, some listen, but can the deaf hear, even though they don't use reason? Now, I put 3 question marks here because I don't understand the sentence. Because the deaf hearing or the deaf not hearing, in my eyes, has nothing to do with they don't use reason. So I have no clue what to do with the sentence. This is where I put 3 question marks behind it, because I really don't understand what's going on here.
Yeah, I think the only reason that was even put there is just like, I think last week we also said that it was more of a rhyme sequence, because I have the Arabic version in front of me open. So the first sentence, like 1040, this is 1042. So 1042, okay. So 1041 is like ends with bari mimma ta'malun, and this one ends with like the deaf is ulsumu walau kanu ulay yaqulun, and then the next one also use yaquluna, and then the next one will use another yubsiruna. So kanwala yubsiruna. So they will. So there's just the rhyme. There's nothing else there. Just
so the rhyme is more important than the contents.
Yeah. So it's like it's ending with the una. It's like, so ta'amaluna, and then this one, ya'qiluna, the next sentence.
Because I couldn't make any sense of this, because being deaf has nothing to do with using
Yeah.
reason. So this is why I put question marks there, because I couldn't understand this. Okay, 43, some look, but can you guide the blind? What? It doesn't mean anything. And then 44, Allah doesn't do anything wrong to people. They do. So now the Quran blames us for doing something if we are doing it wrong. So we are not being created by a God who knows what he's doing, but we are the ones who are doing this. And I always ask, can Allah be surprised? This is the question. Ask, can Allah be surprised? I'd love to ask a Muslim this, but they don't let me. Only believers will be rewarded. That tells you something, doesn't it? So if you don't believe, you will not be rewarded. You will be punished. Why is that? Why is this thing with the believers and the non-believers, why is that so strong? Belief, 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 don't non-belief, not non-belief. No matter what, you will return. Okay, this sentence doesn't make any sense. What is intended to convey here is that we are being created by a God, and then when we die, apparently he will put us back together somehow, and then we will be put in front of a tribunal who will then decide whether or not we deserve to go to heaven, but we will somehow return to God to be judged, and then some verdict will be passed down, and then we will go either to hell or to heaven.
Yeah, this is a common belief in Muslims too. Like once we die, there's the common phrase they'll use, I have to go back to Allah. That's the common phrase they'll use. Like, so he's gone back to Allah.
Then in 47, this is a common thing we get like every couple of sentences. Every nation requires and gets a messenger. Now, I put there, Canada started in 1982. Now, did that nation of Canada get a messenger?
Oh no, I'm in Canada. We did not get anything.
I know our messenger is a very good friend. Let's just say Igor is that. Yeah, he's showing us the truth. Well, at least
yeah. But yeah, I tried to be a messenger too. I failed. I did not get any revelations. So Canada is messengerless.
Oh no! What about Pierre Trudeau?
Pierre Trudeau's father?
Yeah, the guy who made our what was it like? I forgot the specific bill that he introduced or the name of it, but it was the immigration policy that's what made him famous, right?
Yeah. Like he got the refugees, and like he could be some form of a prophet or savior. He should be considered one. So
yeah.
It's not exactly the messenger who brings the message of Allah, is it?
No. It's not the message of Allah. He's just being nice. That's all it is.
Okay, but sentence 47 in the Quran is a joke. Okay, every nation requires and gets a messenger. Now, why is this sentence there? Because it says somewhere else, the Quran is not logical or sequential or chronological or anything. You need to take bits and pieces from all over the book. And you need to understand that every nation requires and gets a messenger because Allah does not punish a nation and does not punish anyone without it getting a messenger. So the people started putting in this idea that a nation, people, everybody gets warned, then it is their decision whether they follow or not, and then depending on whether they follow, they will get punished or rewarded. So this is the carrot and the stick thing, this story in Islam, and this is where it comes from. Every nation requires and gets a messenger, and because you get a messenger, it is your fault if you go astray and you don't follow the straight path, and therefore you will get punished because you got a messenger. So, 48. When? Again, this is a whole sentence, but that's basically what it says, when. And then 49 says, Allah knows. And then this is a whole thing now about the punishment. 50 is, you'll get punished soon. Enough. Oh, we have time, because the others are going to be like this. This is now a whole thing like this punishing thing. So you'll get punished soon enough, and this is being continued somehow. but without referring to it. So it's something about punishment you need to keep in your mind, because 51 says, would you believe if it happened? And now you need to think, is it punishment? Is it anything? Is it the end times? So if you read the tafsirs, you get different different explanations and different interpretations for this it. And then it asks, now you wanted to expedite it without saying what this it actually is. And then it says, the eternal punishment you deserve. I don't know where this comes out of nowhere. Just suddenly the eternal punishment that you deserve. So this is again going towards non-believers now, that we get this eternal punishment because we deserve it, because we are the kafirs, we are the ones who are actively hiding the truth. And then 53, yes, it is confirmed. And 54, they will regret their deeds, but it's too late to make deals. They will get their fair share. I don't know. Anybody who reads this and then says, wow, this is so amazing, this book. Just read these sentences. This is silly stuff. And then 55...
This seems more like a script to a bad BDSM porno than it does an actual scripture.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Exactly, yeah. And then 55, they don't know that A, Allah owns everything, and B, keeps promises. What the fuck does this have to do with anything? What is this? Why do you have a sentence in here, they don't know that Allah owns everything and then keeps promises?
It kind of makes me like, when they say the promises, it's for the punishments that he's promising, because it's kind of like when a father says, when you get home you're going to get your ass kicked. I promise that. Does it have to do something like that? I
don't know. You don't get any information. Does anybody happen to have 55 open somewhere in the background?
I have the Arabic version open, and it's just the eloquence of it. That do you have the English translation?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so it says, the corpus says, no doubt indeed for Allah, whatever is in the heavens and the earth, no doubt indeed, promise of Allah is true, but most of them do not know. And, the other Sahih International says, unquestionably to Allah belongs whatever is in the heavens and the earth. Unquestionably, the promise of Allah is true, but most of them do not know.
So, that is why I said they don't know that A, Allah owns everything, and B, keeps promises. So these are the two things. But exactly what Rob is just asking, what the hell is this?
You could have a creator, but you could have a creator that created some part of it or all of it. But that doesn't mean that is omniscient or omnipotent, right? So it just has to be powerful enough to create either this universe or humans or whatever the case is. But it doesn't follow that then everything is the case. So what they have to do is try and find something like all-knowing or infer that from the book. But the question is, why ought we accept that? What's the argument that is necessarily the case? And the best they can try and do is this contingency argument, which seems to be all the rage these days among some of the Muslims that fancy themselves in some way. But it's not particularly, persuasive. And even if you did have a necessary being, it doesn't mean that the being has all of those properties. How would you establish that it does? So it's not the case. So it's not unquestionably. In fact, it's the opposite. One can question it, and the Quran doesn't seem to make a strong argument in favor of it being knowing all things, or indeed, everything belonging to it. They just define it that way. And I've recently thought about this because I've had this Christian presuppositionist trying this on. And they use a minimalist argument for God, which is simply, hey, if God is the ontological basis of all things and every fact is dependent on God, what is your argument against that? And I thought about this for a while. And then I thought, and it happened to come off a conversation that Stephen Law was having. He's quite a well-known philosopher here in the UK. And in fact, used to be a postman who became a philosopher. So there's hope for everybody, I guess.
But I like him.
And he's got some good arguments. One of his most famous is the evil God hypothesis. which I won't go into now, but that's one of the things that's one of his favorite arguments. But it came from this idea of this God being, this idea of the minimalist argument for God to me is in fact, I'm apatheist. An apatheist is somebody who doesn't care, who's not interested in that definition, because that definition by my lights is unknowable. And my argument for that is either it's the case that the God that you're talking about is a deist God or a theist God. If it's a deist God, the only things that you can say is that it created this universe. You don't even know if it still exists or indeed what other attributes it has. You can speculate about it, but there's nothing else that you could say about it. If it's a theist God, then it must be the case that this God has in some way communicated with his creation. And if it has, that's the extra criteria that I want to hear arguments for, not a minimalist definition. Because if somebody says God is, hey, what is your, hey, if you guys get this, think about this. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, what is your view on an omniscient, omnipotent God? My response now is I'm apatheist to that. I don't care. I'm not interested in that, because that God is unknowable by my lights, because you haven't provided the additional criteria that is necessary for you to make that claim.
Yeah, it's
And
insufficient.
the necessary
exactly.
criteria would be some sort of communication with somebody, and that's the part that we can interrogate. And then we can see whether you can infer those other properties. But those properties on their own, sitting minimalist on their own, I'm apatheist now about those claims.
Yeah. Yeah, you need more information to do that. Exactly.
And specifically this verse in specific, it doesn't exactly give you any useful information. So it just says, no doubt, like, Ala inna Allahi ma fis samawati wa ard. So like it just says, indeed, no doubt, indeed, Allah has whatever is in the heavens and the earth. And then it ends with, inna wa'ada Allahu haqqul walikin in aksaruhum ya'lamun, la ya'lamun. So it's like people, the promise of Allah is true. Wa'ada is the promise. And la ya'lamun is just, they just do not know. So la ya'lamun is, so it's just the wronged and the no. In the previous sentence, there's like, you will not be wronged is yazlamun, and then ya'lamun is the no, like they do not know. So it's just like the rhyming. It's just nice to listen to, but other than that, it makes no sense.
Well, I always ask, is it really nice to listen to this just because it rhymes?
It's
Because
like,
there's in Germany, there's a guy, he's a comedian,
yeah,
and he did a lot of poetry. And
right.
the poetry that he came up with was always a joke, but they were like really brilliant jokes. They were, sometimes these would be 2 lines, and I mean, as a child, I grew up with this, and this is how I think I learned German, and this was so brilliant, the way that he observed life, the way that he observed reality, and was able to bring this into poetry. This was really great. But here, what I see is that the poetry that a sentence is being squeezed into makes it nonsensical. And I think this is the difference between somebody who's truly gifted, somebody who's truly capable of seeing all these things, and then coming up with the creativity to create this into or make this into a poem. And this is a huge difference between what I see here. Okay. Then let's go back to 56. He creates and kills. You will return. This is the same theme again, that when you die, then you're going to go back to Allah. And then comes an interesting claim. You received instructions. What?
What? Whoops, sorry, that was me, my bad. That was me. I kind of got lost in the Arabic, and I forgot to mute my mic. My apologies.
Are you practicing? I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, so you received instructions, healing, guidance, and mercy. This is a claim. What instructions did I receive? I've not received any instructions, because if the instruction manual is the Quran, it's a language I don't speak. It's in a format that I don't understand. A lot of the sentences are totally nonsensical. Some stuff only Allah knows. So what kind of instructions am I getting? I'm getting instructions that it's okay to beat my wife. I'm getting instructions that it's okay to have sex slaves. Is that healing? Is that guidance? And where's the mercy? What do you mean you received mercy? I have not received mercy because I'm being told 106 times in the Quran I'm going to go to hell. That's not mercy. So this is useless. Allah's bounty.
Stops. Maybe you should do what's instructed in the document and drink camel urine to cure your ignorance.
Maybe. Allah's bounty and mercy is better than riches. Really? How so? Why is it that I'm not getting anything? Why is it that I have to do everything myself, and then if I get something, I have to say thank you to this God, whereas if I don't do anything, I don't get anything? But then I'm not allowed to blame the God for that. Then it's my own fault. This is quite strange. So if I'm getting a mercy, how do I know that I'm getting a mercy? I don't. Because this bounty and mercy I only get when I'm dead. Well, I'm sorry. I'm being taught the easy way, that it's not better to get rich than wait for Allah's bounty and mercy. Then I prefer to be rich and have a good life. Even not because then the claim is that for eternity my afterlife is going to be damaged. Well, then, yeah. Then 59 and another. This just out of the blue, you have something completely different. What was sent down is lawful. What was sent down is lawful. What was sent down?
Which was 59, right? So what?
Yes. This is like out of the blue. Something was sent down. Well, cattle was sent down. The only thing that was not sent down is one correct book in the form of a Quran.
Yeah, it says here, like say, have you seen what has been, even the has been, what sent down? Because the words is sent down. The has been instructed in brackets. So has sent down Allah. So it just says, Qul ara ayat ma anzala Allahu. So even a lot of it is in brackets for you. So it's been sent down for you of provision, and you have made of it unlawful and lawful. Say in it also, Qul, it's constantly saying, say, has Allah permitted you, or about Allah you invent. So invent, and then they put in brackets lies. This is sentence 59. So it's like,
no, that's 60.
Oh, is that 60?
Allah is full of good things and with provisions, so why lie about him?
This is weird. Hold on, let me just give me a second. Let me just jump to 59. Oops. 59. I'm just gonna correct this. Yeah, so so yeah, so it does say, have you been sent down and what you have made lawful and unlawful? Yeah, it is 1059. Can somebody open or should I screen share?
Go ahead.
All right, share screen. Somehow I'm not able to do it. Hold on, just let me try this. Can anybody see this?
Yep.
All right. So it says 1059. Say, have you seen what has been sent down by, like the buyers inserted Allah for you of the provision, and you have made it of it unlawful and lawful. And then it ends with, say, Allah has permitted to you, or what about Allah you invent. And the invent, they insert the bracket lies. This is in 1059. And then, the Sahih International says you invent a lie about Allah. And then, so, how do I stop this?
So why do I have this as sentence number 60?
Interesting, because let's see sentence number 60. So the next sentence you have is, okay, so, and what's the assumption of those who invent against Allah the lie? So the lie theme continues on the day of judgment. Indeed, Allah for surely full bounty to mankind, but most of them are not grateful.
No, this is different.
Huh.
Because in my 60 it says Allah is full of good things, so why lie about him? That matches with your 59.
Interesting. And this is from the Koranx.com.
And if you go to 58,
So let's go to 58. Just go previous. So you see, say in the bounty of Allah and His mercy, so let
Yes.
that rejoice.
okay, that matches because I said Allah's bounty and mercy is better than riches. That was my 58. So I made a balls up in 59 then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the 59 is a bit different. Like I just noticed because I have this open.
So what was sent down lawful is not what it says in 59. So I will need to somehow mark this, that I go and look at this again. Excellent. Thank you for that.
No problem. I'll just stop the screen share. All right.
Great. And I just need to look at this and see where I screwed up here. Okay. Oh, wow. It's already quarter past. Thank you for that. That was the Koran Korner. Now what we need to do is we need to address for the last time.
Who is this man called Muhammad? Peace and blessings upon him, in the desert 1400 years ago, making a claim that an angel came to a cave and told him he's a messenger to mankind. Test that claim. Is he lying about this claim? Is he crazy delusional about this claim? Has he been deceived into this claim? Or is he telling the truth? Test the claim.
So that is what we were looking at, and this is what we are doing for this month. And we've already talked about the things that we have found, that we have established. And there were a lot of things that we have found out. That Muhammad is not, you cannot call Muhammad a false prophet, because it's just another person. It's just like Moses received his orders when he was alone on a mountain, I think it was. Muhammad received his stuff when he was alone in a cave. So you have this recurring pattern of Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, where you have a lot of parallels. So we've established that Muhammad in history was not a real person. It couldn't have been the way that it is described in the Sunnah, because Mecca simply does not align with the information that we are getting if you compare it with reality. Therefore, the story of Muhammad must have been a little bit different. How much of it is different, we do not know. We have established that there were 5 other prophets at the time in the region, and it could be that people just merged all these figures with a warlord, with somebody, and created Muhammad. So the important thing is, and this is what I think can do today, is what is the impact that this figure Muhammad has today, that Michael Hart made him the number 1 person that he mentioned, that he thought of, when he says people in the world that have impacted this planet. And there Muhammad is number 1. I mean, there's also other people who have impacted this planet in a very negative way, but Muhammad is amongst those who has impacted this planet as a prophet, as a politician, as a warlord, as a pirate. No two ways about it. The question is, what is it that Muslims are doing with this today? So, can this be justified, what is being claimed? If we look at the different claims being made in the different hadith, because we only have the Sunnah, we have nothing else about Muhammad anywhere else. We found that he's not really mentioned in the Quran either. The 4 times that it does appear as Muhammad, as Muhammadin, as Muhammadan, are not really names, but it's more about the praise. It's about the praiseworthy. It's about whatever. But it's not about the name. So if we look at all the things, what Muhammad actually came, and there are a couple of positive things. And let me just mention a couple of things that I found, like the proportionality of punishment. In other words, that if you, well, I don't need to explain that. And then, of course, to be righteous. Now, we found that there's a huge problem in actually defining righteous and finding a definition for righteousness in Islam, because it can be righteous to go and keep a slave, have sex with her, even though she's married, have her divorce her husband, and then marry her yourself. Or you can see your sister, your daughter-in-law, and then if the son or whatever, the adopted son, divorces her, that you can go and marry your own daughter-in-law. This can be righteous. And we're not even talking about rape and things and all sorts of things. What Muhammad did do, according to the Sunnah, is preach good moral qualities, a good character. And there, I know Mustafa has an example which I think is quite telling. And then we have the charity and the philanthropy. We have all these elements of forgiveness and kindness towards humans and animals, by the way, which is not being, I don't know, done by God. But this is something that Muhammad will say to his followers, to be kind to humans and animals. And of course, something that I find all the time, even though it is misunderstood a lot, is this modesty. Because a lot of people say, well, you are being modest as a female if you go and you cover your entire body so that only one eye can still see outside the normal world. As being modest, that a woman does not drive a car or does not ride on a bicycle. Then you have this thing called decency, which Muhammad propagated. And then respecting elders. So that is a good thing. The whole family value thing, I find that very positive. Then you have the trustworthiness that he was preaching and that he was said to adhere to. And then the sincerity that he also said it is very important. Now, if I look at these things, hardly any are being followed by Muslim apologists. Even though the stories that we see, and Mustafa found one which I actually forgot, which is very nice. Can you relate? Can you tell us about that?
Oh yes, I can share my screen as well. I have the story. Hold on one second. Okay, so I have share screen. Can you guys see this? All right.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So several years, according
can you make it bigger? Because that's much better. Because the stuff on the left, we don't really need. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah. So several years later, according to a narration collected by Ibn Ishaq. So Ibn Ishaq is the first ever historian. He was involved in a well-known story about setting the black stone in place in the wall of the Kaaba. And this is the estimated date of it. So the black stone, a sacred object, was removed during the renovations. The Meccan leaders could not agree which clan should return the black stone to its place. So they decided to ask the next man who comes through the gate to make that decision. That man was the 35-year-old Muhammad. This event happened 5 years before the first revelation by Gabriel to him. He asked for a cloth and laid the black stone in its center. The clan leaders held the corners of the cloth and together carried the black stone to the right spot. And then Muhammad laid the stone. So this was the story. Then there's others. I have a few others I can share later.
No,
Yeah.
Go ahead, because this is exactly what we're trying to do.
Okay,
What is
perfect.
the impact of Muhammad? What did he do? What did he do
Okay.
that was good, that was useful, that was nice? And how is that impacting people today? Because what I see at the moment is this kind of this Solomonic level of judgment, where if you cannot do it individually, then you do it all together. So this is quite nice.
Yeah, so we have also some Holy Quran verses. So it says here, 21:107, and we have not sent you but as a mercy to the worlds. They inserted Muhammad in the brackets. I just took the literal translation. And then 33:21, in the Prophet of God, you have a beautiful example. And 68:4 states, you are of magnificent character. I put this title as a wrestling hadith because I love wrestling. But Sahih Muslim 2609a, and there's others even in Bukhari too, it states the strong man is not the one who wrestles, but the strong man is the one who controls himself in a fit of rage. So this is nice advice, like, someone who can control his anger. And then there's another good advice: free the captives, free the hungry, and visit the sick. So this is from Sahih al-Bukhari 3046. And even in Tirmidhi, book 49, I forgot the number of the hadith. I forgot to put it there. But it stated that the Messenger of Allah said, "The best of you is the best to his wives, and I am the best of you to my wives. And when your companion dies, leave him alone." Okay, the last part doesn't make a lot of sense, but the first part is like, okay, this is some nice, this is okay. Like, people can take this and say, oh, I should be nice to my wife. So it's not a bad example.
So in other words, what we find in the Sunnah is a huge contradiction, where we have somebody who started off as a prophet, who just in Mecca allegedly went and just preached peace and tolerance, and there's a God, and be nice to each other and to the God, and you will be rewarded. Then he became a statesman when he went to Medina, where he started this Islamic state as a state, and somehow suddenly we get all these political sentences, these legal rulings and judgments. And then when he doesn't have any income, he goes and robs other people and just steals from them. And then suddenly he goes and very aggressively goes and plunders caravans and even small settlements, and then just steals from other people. So this progression from preacher to pirate is quite a weird one. And I don't quite understand why they had to do this, why they had to make this Muhammad figure such an offensive figure. One who would go and advise his people to enjoy raping captives to the fullest. I don't understand that, because on the one hand you have what Mustafa just wrote, which is quite nice, which I can understand that people today saying, well, I should be honest, and I should forgive, and I should be kind, I should be modest, decent, and all these other things. And then on the other hand, I can go and kill, I can go decapitate, I can go and rape, I can go and do all these other things. This carrot and stick, and this huge contradiction in the character of Muhammad. Does anybody have a comment? Does anybody have an explanation why this is necessary? Why this makes sense in Islam?
The thing, it's not so much a make sense, but this is something I did want to comment on. That when you look at the Hadith, especially, you see like either two extremes. You see someone that is a really nice person on one end, like, he's also giving to the orphans a lot, and he doesn't spend a lot. And then on the other hand, you see someone who's just a very vile, immoral character. And these are just two very different persons. And what it seems like is that I think these two persons, I personally think that this might have been either two different persons, or it might have been something called like a precedent. In law, you have what you call a common law, and common law usually has precedent, like what was the judgment before. So based on said judgments, they created these hadiths based on situation to situation. The seerah was already there, the seerah, but then you have these hadiths, the sunnah, which is different. What would the prophet do? So they were kind of, I think, the later, when they were trying to tell the narrative, the Abbasids, the Umayyads, maybe not the Umayyads, but the Abbasids specifically, wanted to enforce a particular agenda. And, they ended up creating a mishmash of a personality that was the precedent, or the placeholder, as you called it earlier.
Nick, I saw you wanted to say something?
No, I was just gonna say that maybe it was written by a different So it might have been just an add-on story, like in So I remember for the Bhagavad Gita they had an original text that was based off of a nomadic tribe. And then due to the translations, multiple new things were added. Maybe there were multiple additions or modifications throughout the um, ages as it was transforming around. That's probably why we see a lot of discrepancies, like a lot of other religious texts out there.
Yeah. Rob, do you have any ideas how we can translate the actions and these discrepancies of a figure 1,000 years ago into today?
I don't think we can. And so that's the question that's always asked. What is it that make this person worthy of being followed or taken seriously today? And I've always said that if Muslims gave up these ideas, they'd have 90% of the arguments would go away. But they keep doing so, and we have to keep challenging it. And then you get the argument, oh, but you're using presentism, right? The idea that by today's standards, we can judge people in the past. And we certainly can under certain circumstances, especially if those people claim that they have the best ideas and so forth. Then I think we are obligated to challenge that and say, well, okay, by today's standard, is it good or true or whatever the case may be? And we can say people of ancient times were pretty clueless, but those that are supposedly informed by God, we would imagine, are not clueless. And what do we find? That they are pretty clueless about the world. So I think we certainly can't be guilty of the charge of presentism if the claim is that some ancient person has got good ideas or truth or morals by today's standards.
Do you have any explanation how it is possible that this very highly controversial figure of Muhammad, as described in the Sunnah, is being worshipped today as a person who is revered, who is placed on a pedestal higher than family, wife, parents, anything, that people worship this person almost the same way as a god?
And I feel like this was this Muhammad figure, like a lot of these things that were written about him were like 2-3 centuries later. Now his status being raised to a god may have been also just the same, like very eventual, very like gradual over the years, because in the 7th century, if you actually look at the archaeological evidence, we don't have any evidence of like this person being exalted to a godlike figure until like but then we see a gradual like acceptance of this person as being almost godlike. And this is also in the Shia Islam as well. Like you have the infallible imams who are the direct descendants of Muhammad. Ali himself, who is the spiritual successor of Muhammad, he's also infallible. But then there's also many questionable things Ali himself has done. So there's the veneration of these figures. I feel like they might have followed a similar path to what happened to Mahatma Gandhi, for example. He had done some very questionable things, but he's on the Indian rupee, for example. So Muhammad could have been something similar, just that this person, he's done questionable things, but then we're just gonna not talk about the terrible things as much, and just highlight the good stuff, and then or enforce a particular value, because maybe some of these things, such as marrying a 6-year-old, penetrating a 9-year-old girl sexually if she's your wife, or having slaves, was not seen as immoral, or was seen as an example of by these people, and now it's becoming embarrassing. So there's this controversy that we need to. This might not be authentic, and the Hadith is just a giant library of like there's Dhaif, there's like Gharib Hadith, and so it's a bit it's a bit confusing, but at the same time there seems to be an indication that this was a gradual this figure wasn't as great first because there were many competitors, but then slowly and slowly he just grew and grew.
Any other ideas? Come on, guys. I don't want to just be the two of us speaking all the time.
Yeah. Well,
because we're running out of things. I was hoping that we're going to find a lot more things that we can say about the advancement or about the sort of the evolution of Muhammad over 1,000 years, the way that he was seen in those days and the way that he's seen today, and why it is that so many Muslims today still believe in what is being said about him, and that they can sort of derive their moral values and the entire standard for living in the world today. This for me is mind-boggling. I can't understand it.
You keep in mind, you can't even exactly extract his character if you just read Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, or even the Sahih Hadith in general. You really can't paint an accurate picture because it's such a contradictory picture. And they just present two extreme sides. So the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Nick, you have something to say?
Yeah, no, I was going to say that exact same thing because I think a lot of the literature that's written for any text is hyperbolized, right? Like if you were to read Shakespeare, a lot of the playwrights, when they write some sort of literature, they use a lot of hyperbole to describe a regular situation that they want to provide a viewing to the audience. But I'm thinking like, yeah, over the years, due to various literature, it was given a lot of hyperbole, and it should be taken as such. But obviously, not a lot of people see it the same way.
Yeah.
And I feel like,
okay.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add another thing. Like, yeah, what reminded me, Stops, is that there's I forgot what it's called. It's like La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, the statement. There is no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. So, this is often repeated in not only prayers, but like in Muslim circles. This is constantly like reinforced that there's only one God, but this second thing is also very important, and that is Muhammad is the messenger of God. Even though there are many messengers, like 124,000, this Muhammad is just given something very, specific. Like, he's the messenger of God.
Yeah. Okay, let me go to the chat a bit. It would explain that countless hadith is easy to lie about someone who never existed. You can make up all sorts of rubbish, to which, to be fair, the hadith are. And this is exactly the point, because you can just sort of bring up the different things. The only thing it doesn't explain is how you can have all these contradictory reports, all these contradictory character traits, and the way that he reacts in very different ways on similar situations. So there seems to be a lot of discrepancy here and a lot of people making stuff up. So this is quite strange. And then is it fair to judge people who lived 14 years ago? No, of course not. Yes, of course, if they say that they are the role model for today, then we have to apply today's standards to somebody who allegedly lived 1400 years ago. So if this is a reflection of the moral and I don't know, level of decency or whatever you want to call it, of a society and culture 1,000 years ago, then we shouldn't be in any way trying to apply it today. But it is being done. And that is why, we need to do that. If somebody propagates slavery 1,000 years ago, I can understand it. But that should not be propagated today. But you don't have a possibility to change the Quran to say, or the Hadith to say, do not own other people. This is the problem. This is why Muhammad should have done that, but he didn't. Then we have, he was seen as a prophet later. And again, well, was he seen as a prophet later on? I think it's the other way around. I think he started off as a prophet and then ended up as a pirate. Because this is the way that he...
Yeah, like based on the Sirah, that is the case, like based on the Sirah. Like I think Fred Sharp does have a point that, he may have been at that time, because we do have no evidence that this prophet even existed. So, he may have been seen as a leader and prophet later, but then the flip could also be true. The flip side could also be very true.
But Muhammad, maybe this could be that he was seen as a leader in the early days, in other words, 1,000 years ago. But today we are focusing more on the prophet side, that we don't see him as a statesman and a pirate so much, but Muslims today see him only as a prophet. So this whole other thing is sort of, I don't know, neglected, because it was just part of the evolution of the person, but is not in any way relevant today, because I think today it's the prophet of Allah and not the leader or the statesman or the warlord or something like this. Today it's just a prophet and messenger. So this could also be.
Another point that just popped into my head just reading this. If you notice with comic book characters such as Superman, I'll use Superman as an example. Now, Superman, when he was introduced, he was completely perfect. He could not be defeated, no flaws, nothing like that. But then as the stories progressed, the readers were probably interested in, knowing more about the Superman character. So then more stories were invented to, his weakness was invented, there's the identity, there's, other stories, that where he's challenged or he has some flaw in his character. And this is with many superheroes and many fictional characters as well, like even Hercules. You explore this. So what seems to me that this could have been a fictional or like a person who could have been seen as this perfect thing, but then this may have been, a lot of these things, whether good or bad, could have just been fictional, like just added on, and then without making any sense. Even fiction, it doesn't make any sense, because you have a different Superman in Gods Amongst Us, and then you have a different Superman in Superman All-Star. So you have two different personalities in that. So I kind of like comparing Superman and Muhammad, because they see the pattern they follow is very similar. That
have you heard of The Boys?
Yes, The Boys. Yes, where you have Homelander, who is
exactly
the representation of Superman, and now he's a corrupt version of this Superman. Because if you think about it, it's like, no, this man is very corrupt. And even like the Batman, the dark figure itself, like Batman is seen as the hero, but then if you really look at it, if you really apply the logic, this is a very dark person. This is a very narcissistic person. So the superhero, Muhammad, could have been this superhero type of figure, like this folklore. And that, kind of created these, this weird mishmash of different personalities. And these could have been just fictional tales.
Yeah. And we're getting some interesting things here now. Was Muhammad supposed to be Jesus? But then Hadith hijacked it from Jesus to Muhammad. You see, this is the point that I think last week we discussed this, that, for example, the Dome of the Rock totally applies to Jesus. So there are a lot of indications that Muhammad was sort of shaped, formed on top of Jesus, on this figure. That's why he's called the praised one and seen as the Messiah. Yes, there are a lot of indications that Muhammad was supposed to be the Arabic Jesus. And then they just went from there. So then different packages were put on top, not only the Jesus package. But there are a lot of similarities, yes, indeed.
And on top of that, would that make Batman the modern day Muhammad for DC?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. It's very true. Also the hero, the warlord, the whatever, but also the dark side, yeah, which is like hideous, yeah.
Yeah,
and I feel we can see flashing that Muhammad's character after 5 shows can be shows like that of openly critiqued him, completely assassinated. What?
Yeah.
Like that of those who openly critiqued him, completely assassinated. Okay, sorry, I don't know what that means.
Oh, his character is assassinated. Okay, Muhammad's character is assassinated. That's what I'm getting out of it.
Okay, if we're getting it wrong, just try and say it again.
Yeah.
And here we have the evolution of Muhammad. First, he's unemployed, true. Then he's a gold digger, marriage of all that, also true. He hires some local thugs to raid caravans, yes. He declares himself God's mouth, true. And then he ruins the raid.
More so, I would say instead of ruin, it would be more like conquer the Arabian Peninsula.
And he established it. because
Yeah.
before it was really nothing, and then it became a force to be reckoned. So there's a lot of different, but yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Then we have, if we brought back Muhammad today to see Islam, what would he think of it? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, that would be an interesting question. What if he would see it and he's like, I did not mean to do this? Or,
Well, I think he would be very surprised. Remember that he said that the end days would come before the life of this boy sitting there
yes,
will be extinguished. So he thought this would come within the next 60 days, 60 years or so. So he would be very.
Let me pull up that hadith.com. This should be somewhere here. You said that the day of judgment, right? So it says day of judgment.
I have this but I don't. I have this somewhere. But home had everything. He was raised as a mutant and unloved, excuse for being a dick. Well, he was also. Remember, he was an orphan. The father died while the mother was pregnant. Well, we don't really know, but okay. But this is the story because the mother was supposed to have been pregnant for 6 years or something, or 4 years or something. Then the mother died. Then he was sent to the grandfather. Grandfather died. Then he got pushed onto the uncle, and there he had to camel herd the camels. And it's only then when he married the rich widow that he became a merchant. So yeah, there's also a bit of a trauma.
Yeah, and even with the uncle himself, like uncle was sheltered him a lot too, or like kept a guard of him a lot. So he was also very overprotective as well. So that could have also caused some issues. The uncle of Talib being extremely overprotective.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, there could be a lot of issues. And then what Marjana is pointing out, mental illness, heard voices, couldn't remember. He went pale, sweated profusely, felt ill, all sorts of things, yeah. So there's a lot of speculation.
Or he could have been like seen as one of the shamans of that time too, like a shaman. And that just shaman happened to have the keys to power. So that could be the case. The prophet no one asked for and no one deserves.
Yep, character completely assassinated, exposed. Well, I don't think we did. I think we were very fair. I think what we have established is that this is not a figure that existed as is claimed, not exactly anyway. Then if it was remotely that, then a lot of liberty was taken with some details in his life, which was placed somewhere which was not there. So there's a lot of, modification going on. So it's not completely assassinated. And we did find some nice things about him anyway. Most Protestants have some brain as well. Yeah, I think they have to. I think that's a prerequisite.
Yeah, it is.
If Muhammad was brought back, he would say, "Who slapped me with a stick?"
Yeah, it's apparently you're supposed to slap someone with a stick to bring them back to life, according to Surah Al-Baqarah.
No, I think I'd probably see him on Catch a Predator. How Chris Hansen be like, "Come here, sit down. What are you doing here?" And then he pulls out like a Quran from his pocket. And he's like, "I have your transcript."
No, it's not in the Quran. It's actually in the Hadith. Like being the 6-year-old and being screwed around when she was 9. Yeah, that was the Hadith.
Well, yeah, you get the point, right?
Like
I have a copy of your transcript right here.
Yeah, you can say this is Sahih. This is Sahih in chain.
Yeah. And this is also possible that he was abused. So we don't know if this was a real person. Almost made me feel sorry for Muhammad. Well, then I did a good job, didn't I? If Muhammad came back, the Muslims would reject him. Yeah? It could very well be. It could very well be. Yes. And she said she was 9. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
If brain disorder is a sign of prophet, I better still point down to hijab. Okay, guys. I think this was a very interesting month. I think we did some really, really nice stuff. Let me just close with the hadith of the week, because there's no point now extending this artificially. I think it was excellent. It was good to go down this whole thing to show what we have about Muhammad, that you cannot just simply make claims based on the hadith because they don't make sense. So if I take the hadith of the week, we have Abu Huraira, of course, once again. The Prophet said if somebody eats or drinks forgetfully, during Ramadan that is, then he should complete his Sawm, his fasting. For what he has eaten or drunk has been given to him by Allah. Well, that's a weak excuse. So if he drinks forgetfully, oh dear, I forgot that I wasn't supposed to finish this steak. I did. I finished the steak and I had the 3 beers, but I forgot about it. I'm sorry. But Allah gave it to me, and therefore, I don't know. Do people still remember the story that I said where my father received a shipment of something like 20 boxes, and one box was whiskey, and our neighbor took it. And then when my father went there and said, listen, why are you taking this was in Tehran, okay? And he said, you're not supposed to be drinking alcohol, are you? He says, well, it was on my side of the border, so Allah gave it to me, so I was drinking it with closed curtains. So this was his excuse why he was allowed to drink alcohol.
Yeah. Hey, I accidentally ate an entire bunch of grapes while I was fasting. So I realized, oh crap, I was fasting. Did not happen. My aunt found out and she's like, aren't you fasting? And I'm like, oops. So she's like, don't worry, I won't tell anybody. So hey,
okay, guys, give us a thumbs up and let others, especially Muslims, know. And of course, if you want to continue talking about Islam, join us on the Discord server and we will see you there. Otherwise, thank you very much, ladies, gents, and others. We'll see you next Friday. If anybody has a theme, maybe next week we'll start doing another video because we haven't done this for some time. Thank you very much. Any closing words from the panel?
I just want to say thank you for having me on. Yeah, I know it's great that you guys find value in what I have to say as well, being the chimp I am.
All right.
Rob, any closing words?
No, I think good night to everybody, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you next week. Otherwise, if we don't see you on the Discord channel. And I was hoping that we are going to have a Muslim on the panel today, because there was somebody called The Perfect Dawa who sort of showed some interest, and I was hoping that he will be here, but maybe we first need to speak to him on his channel and get some sort of feedback, and so that we can talk to each other. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, people from the chat. Excellent. Good to have you here. We'll see you next Friday. Good night.